Right, today I've got a fascinating comparison for you. I'm going to ask the question, what difference does it make to ride a course on a TT bike as opposed to a non-TT bike? Let's keep everything the same. Let's have the same course ridden with the TT versus non-TT bike. Same rider, same outfit, same clothes, same power, same outside temperature. What difference do you think it's going to make to ride that course with a TT bike? Now I've chosen a course here which is, let's say, moderately hilly. It's got only a 125 meter elevation gain over the 16 kilometer or 10-mile course. Some people would call that bumpy rather than hilly. Stravastics calls it a hilly course based on the fact that 25% of the time is spent climbing, 25% descending, and 50% on the flat. So the TT bike could come out better or worse depending on how much time it makes up on the downhill or flat as opposed to uphill. At least that's my assumption. Let's ride with both bikes and see what we find out. So let's compare these two rides taken with a TT and non-TT bike over the same course, the same clothing, the same aero helmet, but different bike, different wheels, but otherwise identical conditions. So I've opened up these two rides. This is the first ride and this is a ride earlier this month. The rides were both at the same temperature, 18 degrees, same wind conditions, 2 to 4 kph, almost no wind. You can see the ride stats show approximately the same cadence, 70 to 74 RPM. The power is similar, not identical, but in fact it favors the non-TT ride very slightly, but to be fair, that was collected with the powertap hub, albeit with an aerojacket over the top, as opposed to the B Pro pedal on the TT bike. Nevertheless, the distance was the same. So if we just go into the actual course itself, which is this 17 kilometer or so course, approximately 10 miles. Let's go into view leaderboard here. And if we do compare efforts and then load in the two rides, one's loaded in already, that's the TT bike, and let's load in under my results the previous one from 4th of June. Just click plus here. That loads the effort in. I don't know how clear this is on the screen, but the purple line is whether the non-TT bike is ahead or behind, and very quickly it falls behind. It actually falls behind on this bumpy middle section and then on this downhill section significantly. On the uphill section there isn't much of a difference. In fact, it does make some gains. There's a very slight gain on that steep uphill climb at the beginning of the ride. Overall, the cumulative loss over the entire ride is approximately 1 minute 30 in a 28-minute ride. Or looking at it in kph, the TT bike kph is 35.6 and the non-TT bike kph is 33.8. That's approximately just under, approximately 20 miles an hour versus 21 miles an hour. A difference of 1.8 kph overall. You can potentially look at this in a little bit more detail by going into extended statistics. On the TT bike, we can discover that 53% of the time was on the flat, and the flat speed was 36.6 kph. Whereas on the non-TT bike, 15 minutes 54 seconds were on the flat, 53.7 at 34.1 kph. And going downhill, the non-TT bike did 43.4, and going uphill 25.8, as compared to 46.1 going downhill on the TT bike and 27.0 going uphill. So in fact the TT bike is faster in all areas, although remember on this course the hills are very, very modest, but particularly downhill, 46.1 as opposed to 43.4. So going downhill the advantage was roughly 2.5 kph. Going uphill 25.8 versus 27.0, the advantage was only 1.2 kilometers an hour. But over the whole course, the average advantage was nearly 2 kph for the TT bike. Okay, so the results are in. You saw there the comparison of the real world ride using the two bikes and analysed using Strava or Stravistics. The first thing to say is it's not like night and day. The non-TT bike is still moderately competitive, but it does have a disadvantage, particularly on the flat and descending. Actually, there was a slight disadvantage ascending, which was a surprise. But overall, the difference is, let's say, modest. So if you don't have a TT bike and you're riding, short time trials with aero bars like this one, I wouldn't panic. You can still be at least a little bit competitive. However, to get that absolute last bit of speed out, it does seem that the TT bike has an advantage. Now, it has an advantage in the frame, it has an advantage in the bars, it has an advantage in the concealed brakes, and it has an advantage in the wheels. In fact, I think a lot of the advantage comes in the trispoke carbon wheels. However, the non-TT bike was ridden with an aero cover over the powertap rear hub, and also the front wheel was an aero wheel, although it wasn't the exact same design as the trispoke carbon wheel. The bottom line is the TT bike is the fastest, and if you want to get the best speed you can on short courses, I think the TT bike is the way to go. What do you think? Post your comments below.